Welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast, where Gauri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Our guest today is Rick Teplitz, Documentation and Project Manager at Imperva. Imperva is an analyst-recognized cybersecurity leader championing the fight to secure data and applications wherever they reside. Welcome, Rick, to Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much, Gauri. I am doing fabulous.
Great. So I know the sun is shining outside, so it's a lovely day today.
Yes. Over here today, yes, we were outside. We opened all the windows in the house. It almost feels like summer.
Great. So, Rick, I know I might have spoken only very few points about your profile, about yourself. So please, to get everything into context, can just explain a bit more about yourself. How are you with Imperva? And if you would like to explain a little bit about Imperva, that would be great.
All right. Well, Imperva, as you mentioned, is a cybersecurity company. We are an industry leader. We have large client base, Fortune 500 companies, banks, financial institutions. I have been there going on 13 years. I started there as a staff technical writer. From there, I moved, and I was what we referred to as a knowledge engineer, which is a role out of support. We would prepare training for new features for support personnel to use. For troubleshooting and supporting the product. And we also prepared training for new hires and setup support to bring them up to speed. And then after that, I moved over back to the documentation team. I was asked to come and lead it. So for the past 6.5 years, I've been managing the technical writers and documentation delivery at Imperva for all of our public releases.
Fantastic. So how did you originally get into documentation, Rick?
Well, years ago, this is dating me, it must be about 25 years ago, I had a friend who, I live in Israel, I'm an expat, and I have a friend who was from South Africa, and I really had no path or no idea what to go on, and he had mentioned that, there's a big demand for technical writers in this country, there's a lot of software companies, and that kind of planted the seeds. So I didn't go into technical writing immediately at that time. I did start to do courses like I did A+ computer certification for technicians, and I studied at Columbia College in Chicago in web building and multimedia, like building websites, and then slowly over the years, that's kind of how I also managed to fill up my knowledge of technologies through different courses. I've done CCNA. I'm certified CCNA. Did a course in certified ethical hacking. And that kind of, together with my jobs, evolved over with me over the past 20 years.
Fantastic. So ethical hacking, that's nice to know.
Yeah, it's fascinating and fun.
Yeah. So I'm sure in terms of process and what should be going into a documentation, you might have learned a lot during this last 25 years of period. So according to you, what's your documentation process, and who do you normally get involved in it?
All right. There's so many levels here. There's specifically focusing on preparing features. Like we have our processes on how we prepare for documentation. We managed to build ourselves into the mechanism of the company. We now manage in the company. We manage all new features with epics inside of Jira. And so, for example, we have a release for our on-premise version. We have on-premise and SaaS-based software. So for our on-premise versions, for example, we get a list of all the features or all the Jira issues that are going to be involved in a release, break it up between the team, the different technical writers. Each has their own specialty, although we don't only limit them to those specialties. The features are assigned. The technical writers start to research, start contacting the SMEs, the developers, the product manager, the architects as needed, get the information, get the briefs, prepare an initial draft, and then start to send it out for review. Now that's all. That's a simple use case, right? I mean, a single feature or even a new product. New products would obviously be a lot more work than that. But for a single feature for an existing product, that's our process for the on-prem.
Fantastic. So, when considering the processes, what do you consider as an important factor when creating documentation for your SaaS business or for any organizations to name?
The most important thing, I think, overall, period, would be, I think it's a little bit of, it's probably EQ. I mean, it's really, obviously, people need to have the technical knowledge. They need to know how to structure information. We're writers. We need to know how to interview people and get information out. But that relationship is really key. We see in our day-to-day work that we can build a relationship with the organization, show that we're not there to cause overhead. We're there to collaborate and help them get done what they need to get done, and that way and we drive the process from the documentation point of view. Developers, they have their own worries and their own work overhead. So we try to understand where we can best fit in and cause the least overhead and provide the most value.
Mm-hmm. Nice. In your customer service or success strategy, how important is documentation for you?
Well, it's actually interesting that we're having this discussion now, because we are in the midst of a significant transition that I'm pretty much initiated and I'm driving. We about a year ago, we finished setting up our public documentation portal, which can be seen at docs.imperva.com, where we host all of our public user guides. Imperva is also a company of four. We started out as one company. We had a spinoff called Encapsula, and then we had a few purchases along the way. So about a year and a quarter ago, we came to this point where we need to merge all these companies. Everybody has their own knowledge base, their own documentation, their own look and feel. The company had launched a project to update the brand, so it was perfectly timed with this project. We set up a public front end. We took a vendor by the name of Zoomin, and we transitioned our documentation public facing to that platform. Right now, we've started what I refer to as phase 2 is the project. So in addition to all the user guides and public documentation, each company had its own support and its own knowledge base, right? And we mostly see a lot of times, we have the documentation and then we have the support knowledge base. Documentation is one team, and the knowledge base is usually written and maintained by support, at least in our organization. So we're in the midst of a project to basically review all the content in all four of these different knowledge bases, archive those that are no longer valid, bring up to date all the remains, and then we're going to migrate everything, all of those knowledge base articles into our documentation platform. So the documentation and the knowledge base will all be hosted in a single repository, which is easy to search. Users will be able to find all information. And so to get back to your original question, what's our role in, our integration with support? I guess, as I mentioned, when I was in support, is what we refer to as knowledge engineers. So I've always kind of had that foot in the door with knowledge. I've had those relationships with the people in the support organization, and it's really, again, it's just relationships and collaboration is the key to getting all these things done. And I think it's an exciting project what we're doing right now. So.
Very nice, very, very busy. So thank you for coming to this podcast and sharing your experience in spite of all those busy schedules you have.
No, my pleasure.
Fantastic. So in terms of workload, have you noticed any reduction in your workload since introducing such quality documentation and processes?
Well, actually, as part of, yes, we have different means of measurement, and we're still formulating them. The documentation portal now has become a public asset. I think it's one of the things you had mentioned when we discussed before. But we're now getting 25,000 unique visitors a month on the documentation portal. 15,000 of them are return visitors. More than 50% of those visits come from Google or come from the public search engines. That means that users find us via search publicly and don't necessarily come directly to the portal. And so we can leverage that and we can measure it. And what we've seen separately is that our support personnel have, when they open a ticket, there's a field that they check to note if a case could have been avoided if there was proper documentation. So we've been tracking that since we launched the portal. And while in the beginning we were seeing about 80 cases like that a month, we are now down to approximately 40 cases a month. So just by making our documentation public, centralizing it, and having it in an organized way where users can search and find information, seems to have had a quite significant positive effect on helping reduce support cases and understanding our role in the greater organization from that point of view.
Very nice. So it's interesting to know how you have implemented your ticketing system to assist with the workload reduction and documentation too. That's nice. So, so how do you measure the quality of your documentation then, if this is how you're tracking the workload reduction?
Well, there's different ways. I mean, most of our bugs come from the field, like through support or through sales engineers or things of that nature. I mean, one of the biggest consumers, I think, of any documentation, particularly for technical companies that are technical, are the internal technical and sales people, right? So we get a lot of bugs internally and from customers. For every bug that we receive, we open it up in Jira. We can track it. We can report on it. We can see the trends. We know how many bugs approximately we're getting. The process isn't identical for SaaS and on-prem. That's still something that we're working on. The on-prem is much more defined. The SaaS, we open the bugs, but there's just a different dynamic. How many people are on the team? How much we can handle? But these are all part of the KPIs that we're trying to build, so that we will be able to become more data-driven in understanding, how we're impacting customers, what's the quality of our documentation, and even more so, we now have the ability to. We're partnering with marketing in my company, and they have a technology called Optimizely, which enables us to easily pop up a form and ask questions on the fly for customers visiting the documentation portal. So in the future, we can leverage that just for a very short survey to get some basic input from customers and see how their experience is in finding information.
Very nice. You did mention that you made your documentation public, and that is one way of that kind of helped you reduce the number of tickets that your customer support gets. So are you currently generating any organic search traffic from your knowledge base then?
Well, how would you define organic search traffic? As I mentioned, we are. I mean, we're getting 25,000 unique visitors a month. And that's via the public Google, via the public search engines. So yeah, I mean, it's significant, and that's actually one of our objectives. We're trying to understand how to best leverage that traffic. We've, like I said, we've partnered with marketing, which has been a fabulous partnership for us, and I think for the organization. Mm-hmm. And over the past few months, we've worked on building a CTI, a call to action, which is adding a single button to all of our content pages on the documentation. It's very simple. It says See Demo. Users can click that button if they want, and then there's a form. And if they fill out that form, they capture the lead and the information, and that can potentially be pushed down the funnel and maybe in the end even lead to a sale. So the documentation portal and its traffic, the organic traffic that it's generating, is pulling in people to see this content, and then we're trying to capture that content. And we've seen that we're getting at least one lead a day over the past few weeks, which means it's another 365 leads a year for our sales organization to follow up on. So, the fact that it's public, it's a good platform. A very key part of being so successful with the traffic is, again, our partnership with marketing. They have SEO experts. And so while we were setting up the taxonomy of the website, certain nuances like you can't have capital letters in URLs, so we had to design our entire deployment to take that into consideration, and having them give us these insights to help shape the way that we manage the maintenance and update of this web portal, or created, managed, and updated, has been a significant enabler for us to become such a central hub and obtain all of that traffic.
Fantastic. So how often do you update your documentation, Rick?
I don't want to say unfortunately, but constantly. We're not automated into the sense that we could be, and I know that we could if we invested the time, but there's always a lot of things to do and there's different priorities. So it depends. I mean, our methods are changing. Also, our policies for tracking bugs, for example. Well, once upon a time, we would track every single bug in one way. Now there's certain bugs that they come in, formatting bugs, simple spellings or things that we don't need to verify and confirm and get tested. We update on the fly. So that might lead to us doing an update once or twice a day. I mean, it's not the entire website. We update per bundle or per document still. That's the model. And then because the portal itself is evolving, we're constantly doing work on it. We've just added, for example, support for Swagger JSON and YAML files, where we basically get the Swagger file from our development organization. We upload it to the doc site, and then it's rendered in a standard industry standard format for Swagger, where you can go in, you can expand and contract and see the details. And if you're a customer, you can also conduct, try it out, the functionality. You can put in your API key and password, and test out the API via the Swagger. So there's always work going on right now. It's a growing living entity.
It's a living document. Fantastic. Great. So let's move on to our rapid fire round now. So who have you learned the most about documentation from in your career?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I've learned so much from so many people. There's a gentleman actually that I was one of my first official technical writing job, even though I'd call it more editing than technical writing. His name is Rohan, and he was a great guy, and he just kind of showed me the ropes. I think it was more about, again, relationships. The way that he managed relationships was fabulous. He's such a great guy, Rohan Saxena. But separately from that, I want to also give credit. There's a very talented, smart lady in Israel that she has a company. She manages and organizes the Central Conference every year here. Her name is Paula Stern. And she's set up TechCom. We're now part of the TechCom organization. It's a professional association for technical writers. And these conferences, just the relationships that I build there, the people that I meet, the sessions, sometimes some years are better and some years are a little bit less, but she's the facilitator for all of that, and I think she deserves a lot of credit for that. So
fantastic. I know yours is a very long journey as well, isn't it? So it could be difficult to point just one or two people.
Yeah.
So can you share a documentation related resource you have recently consumed, please?
Oh, that's I'd say the conference is really my main one. I'm more into managing and building infrastructure these days, as opposed to the nuts and bolts of writing and getting content ready. So I don't need references nearly as much, and that is probably a bad thing. I probably should consult on more things. We have our resource in Israel. Again, it's TechShort. It's like a user group for all the technical writers in Israel, or TechCom. That same organization that I told you about, we've got a WhatsApp group, which is very convenient. So we can ask questions there. We hold conferences every few months. We get together. There's another group also that's running in Israel now, Write the Docs, and they were meeting in offices up until now, and so they're great. And they were, I went to a session on theirs on APIs, which is all the rage right now. I'm actually doing another user group with Zoomin, who's the vendor of our portal, to talk about our Swagger implementation next week. So it all kind of comes together. The Write the Docs we had on the APIs, and we implemented Swagger, and it's really a hot subject right now. So quite a lot of resources out there. I'd say more of the groups. You have there's wisdom in numbers. So
fantastic, great. So what is that one piece of documentation related advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Just learn. Maybe, and this is what somebody had told me, again, that same friend, way back when, he said, try to find a specialty. And you don't necessarily need to have a specialty, although it's benefited me, right? I started to focus on cybersecurity. It was first networking, and then I moved into cybersecurity, with the hacking course. And I think it's what got me my foot in the door in Imperva, where I've been for the past 12 years. And by having the knowledge and being able to talk the talk, and being able to understand how things are going and understand what's needing, it helps you understand how to explain it, right? So find some type of specialty, and also try to push beyond your boundaries. It's not just finding a specialty, but it's not just, for example, I guess it depends on what you're looking for, but there's a lot of companies out there that need more than just a technical writer. They need, maybe some Marcom, or they need somebody to drive projects for them, So always try to find a way to put that added value in there. That's always a good idea.
Fantastic. So, Rick, that's a lot of information for our audience to take home.
I apologize for that. I'm a talker.
Yeah, no, it's all very useful, and you have knowingly or unknowingly given lots of tips that the audience can take from. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close this podcast?
No, I know it's not an easy time in the world, right? We're in unprecedented times, and there's a lot of change and disruption. It will pass. The world is going to change. From my work methods are changing. I think right now for the better. It's managed to be more productive by not having to go to the office. But that's really just the nature of everything that we're going to encounter. You need to change, and don't stay stuck in your ways. Look for a way to help move forward, and that's really it. That's how you stay relevant. Be part of the conversation.
Well said. So all we need now is high positive vibes and stay calm and just do what you're told.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's they have all these end of the world movies. I don't think it's that bad. Obviously, it's not good. A lot of people are sick and people are dying, but it's not as bad as it could be. And we just have to push our way through it, and everybody deal with it the best they can. Hug your loved ones and don't let it break you. Otherwise, stay in the routine and keep working. And it's a good time to be productive. Because it's really, there's nothing else to do sitting in the house.
Yeah, so, spend more time with the family.
That's true too. That's the wonderful thing is you can be productive and work and you're with your family, all the time in any case. So it's really that's kind of special time about it,
True. Super. So thank you, Rick, for sharing your unique experience and your journey. So it's been really wonderful talking to you today, and take care and keep safe.
Thank you very much, Gauri, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I think it's a great initiative, and I think there's a lot of value in it. So thank you very much. Take care and be healthy.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.